This is Tom from Tabletop Tap Room. Today we are doing low-level magic items that will not unbalance your game and are not boring. Because I've looked at a number of lists and I thought some of these items on these lists were kind of ho-hum, womp, 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 boring. And so I think I've put together a list that will not be overpowered and will not be boring, that the players will actually be excited to get their hands on. But before we get too deep into that, let me just say thank you for watching the video. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great. Don't forget that like, subscribe, and bell icon to help me build the channel and moving right along. So my parameters for this were you didn't want it to unbalance the game, and you didn't want it to give the game master a headache later on, like, handing out a Vorpal sword might do. The principle here, after looking at numerous other lists, is that these things are usable in limited situations. They're not usable all the time. And that said, I have a few dishonorable mentions, kind of like when you have an honorable mention. I have some, I consider these dishonorable mentions. These are popular, like folding boat. Folding boat's popular to put on these kinds of lists, but I think it's boring. Ring of swimming. It's another good one. Limited situations, but it's kind of ho-hum boring, and it's not quite what you think. You got to take your armor off to swim in it if it's a ring of swimming from AD&D. Well, let's start with number 10, and number 10 is the lowly +1 dagger. Now, hear me out on this, because some of you are going, excuse me? +1 dagger, that's boring. And I would agree with you. Yes, it is. However, we're going to change it up a little bit. But +1 dagger is a crucial item to give out as a magic item, because sooner or later, the player characters are going to, as they're progressing from first to second to third level, they're going to encounter a creature that they need a silver or magic weapon to be able to affect it. Normal weapons will be ineffective against that creature. So giving out a +1 dagger is actually a really crucial thing to do for low-level characters, especially if you're not willing to give out a really powerful sword this early. Now, how do we dress this up a little bit so that people are excited about the +1 dagger? Well, my solution is you give it a name. Give it a name, and maybe a 1-sentence, maybe if you're feeling creative, a 2-sentence backstory. Not a lot. Nobody wants a lot there. And we're not talking a name like Sting or, Foe Hammer or Goblin Cleaver from Lord of the Rings. We're not talking weapons with names like that, where there's a lot of lore behind it. No, I'm thinking more like the dagger of the cut purse. Okay, it's +1 dagger, but in the hands of a thief who is attempting to do a pickpocket exercise. And I say this, you say, well, it doesn't make sense if he's reaching in the guy's. No, medieval times, a cut purse was someone who came up and they just tried to cut the strings on the purse that was tied to the belt. And so that's basically a pickpocketing action. And if the thief is attempting to relieve somebody of their purse that's tied to a belt, which is what should be going on, should not be pockets in a medieval setting. Pockets are anachronistic. Then they get a hefty bonus. Now, in AD&D, thieves, first level thief could pickpockets at 30%. Second level, 35%. So a real hefty bonus here will really please a player running a thief. So I think if you're doing a percentage chance roll, a +20, +15, +20, I lean to the +20 is more acceptable. For that. So, they're going to be doing their pickpocketing at 55%, and they might actually be tempted to do it rather than Yeah, I'm not going to bother with pickpocketing while I can only do it at 30%. No, they're going to be tempted to do that. Now, if it's a different edition of D&D, a different rule system, one of the third-party publishers, you might be just rolling on a d20. So I would then say a +4, +3, +4, depending on your preference. So that's the dagger of the cut purse. Another potential +1 dagger I would give away would be like the spell skewer. The spell skewer is a dagger that if you are holding it, if you are wielding it in a fight and somebody casts a spell on you, that is harmful and you get a saving throw against that spell, this dagger gives you a bonus against against that save roll. So, I feel like a +3 to your saving throw roll against a hold person or charm person or sleep or some negative spell that you would get it. Now, this does not necessarily mean that this magic item is for the magic user alone. Many characters would be happy to have this dagger, but the caveat is you have to be wielding it. And so if you're wielding it in a fight, it will skewer a spell for you and cause it to be ineffective because it gives you that bump to your saving throw. Another +1 dagger, this one is for everyone, is the Spelunker's Spike. It is a +1 dagger for all intents and purposes, but it can very easily be just pushed by hand power into a rock face and then used as an anchor, a secure anchor that will not let go. If you are doing climbing and using it as a spike, as you're climbing, that it gives you a nice bump, a nice +20% or a +4 to attempts to climb a slippery slope in a cave. Anything along those lines. So Spelunker's Spike. It's interesting. It's got a neat name. You can put a one-sentence backstory to it, and players will be happy to have this item, and they're not going to get rid of it. They're going to be happy to keep it a good long time. So moving on from the lowly +1 dagger that we absolutely do not call a +1 dagger in my campaign. We call it something cool. We give it a name. We will move on to number 9. Number 9 is the Ring of Free Action. Here's another item for fending off spell effects. The Ring of Free Action, if worn, means web spell, hold, and slow are completely ineffective against the character wearing it. And the thinking behind this is that we all read Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit as kids, and we were just like, the One Ring was cool. And it's just this idea that you give out a magic ring early. People are like, hey, I got a magic ring. It's exciting. Hey, my character has a magic ring now. And it's a magic ring that does something interesting. It's not usable all the time. It's not the same as getting a +1 ring of protection, but it is something that is crucial in a moment when you are being attacked. It completely undoes any assault against your character that's an attempt to hold or ensnare them. So I love this item. Limited situation, it's good for. It strokes that ego stroke of, hey, my character got a magic ring, which I think is a good thing. And Bob's your uncle with that one. Number 8 is Qualls tokens, Qualls feather tokens. Now, these items, they're basically like a potion without being a potion. And for that reason, they make the list because we give out a lot of potions. And potions, we give out so many, they're common, you expect them. I don't think, I think that, it can be a bit boring. But Qualls tokens, they're a potion without being a potion because they're a single-use item. So it's just like a potion. You use it the one time, you use it up, it's done, and you move on. But they're not. They're not a potion. And they do some interesting things. So any of these, they can be found in a purse full of coins. And you'd be like, what is this odd thing? And oh, hey, it's magical. We don't know the command word for it. We got to learn that. And that might take a quest or do a favor for a wizard, and he'll figure out what the command word is for it for you. So it also is something, just the quest to find the command word is fantastic. It adds more to the game. So Qual's tokens. It's a potion without being a potion, and for that reason, it makes it more interesting than potions, which are so commonplace. Number 7, Scroll of Protection from Undead. You say, good God, Tom, that sounds boring. Well, yeah, it's just a great item to give out. Now, in AD&D, Scroll of Protection against undead is good against 35 hit dice of undead. Be any number of, it could be some skeletons, some zombies, and a ghoul all mixed together. I like the idea of invoking the option that's there in the description that it's only good against one type of undead, like say ghouls, something that the player characters are going to encounter sooner or later that really has a chance of kicking their butt, something that drains levels like a wight or a wraith, that does a lot of draining, so you limit it to that specific creature, particularly if you know that it's in the adventure and they're eventually going to encounter it. So I like the Scroll of Protection versus undead. It can be a little bit of foreshadowing. Oh, geez, we got a Scroll of Protection against ghouls. I bet we're going to encounter some ghouls. I don't care that it's foreshadowing. I don't care that the players ask that. Yes, you've guessed ghouls. Now tremble, because it's going to be nasty. So Scroll of Protection undead, number 7. Number 6, the Filter of Persuasiveness. This is a potion, but it's one of the more interesting potions. It's the potion for the players for when they absolutely positively must influence the NPC. And you never know when they're going to decide that moment is. They're going to be deciding the very moment and circumstances and request that's going to be going on with this. And they might surprise you. And I like when the players surprise me as a game master. To me, that's part of the fun for me. So I think this thing has so much potential for creative use. I love giving it out to the players. Number 5 on the countdown is the Arrow of Direction. Looks like a normal arrow, or it looks like a magic. Something you throw in the air once per day, and you use it to find direction. Now this, you say, that's not really exciting. Well, Dungeons and Dragons at its heart is an exploration game. Okay, now some tables go a little more murder hobo, and some tables go a little more talkie role play. Whichever table you're at, it doesn't matter, because at the heart of the game is an exploration game. Number 4 is the Alchemy Jug. Now, I love the Alchemy Jug. I actually think it's really a fascinating thing. Number 1, you have this whole list of things it can dispense: fresh water, salt water, vinegar, chlorine. It's just a whole list of stuff in the AD&D DMG of things it can dispense, but you must know the command word for it to do these things. And on that, and so that becomes a whole quest to find the command words. Now, on that note, the good wife just walked in and she brought me the Alchemy take-home box that is dispensing to me honey fried cheese curd things here that are just absolutely that. And the command word was, I love you, honey.
I love you too.
So, number 4, Alchemy Jug. Doesn't seem too exciting, but just learning all of the command words for it. I mean, because you might have that the Alchemy Jug is willed to a player character with a at most a cryptic note about it, but no command words. Now the players have to go looking for those, or it's just bought as part of buying supplies, and you just thought it was a jug. You were going to put wine in it, and it turns out it's magical. And so now it becomes, what does this thing do? So I think the alchemy jug is interesting because it creates story and gives the players something to research. Number 3 in our countdown is dust of appearance. Dust of appearance is critical to give to low-level players, because sooner or later they will encounter a creature that is invisible. And I mean, this becomes so handy to be able to throw dust of appearance to make it appear. So then you can kill it, because particularly if you are the table I mentioned that leaned more towards murder hobo. Or maybe you might subdue the invisible creature and then negotiate with it. Like we'll turn you loose and let you become invisible again. But you must, tell us this, give us this, do that for us, something along those lines. Number 2, dust of disappearance. What thief doesn't, or magic user doesn't want a little hocus pocus and go poof and disappear? This is just such a handy item, particularly for low-level characters. Gives them a little, quick disappear and oot scoot and boogie. So dust of disappearance made number 2 on our list, and number 1 is potentially should have been a dishonorable mention, but the number 1 item on our list is the robe of useful items. Now you're going to say, yeah, I've read the description of the robe of useful items. Boring. And I agree with you. So here's what we do. We make it, instead of a robe that only the magic user can wear, because you get a robe, it's not like the fighter's going, yeah, let me take off my plate mail armor and wear this. No, they're handing it to the magic user. He wears a robe anyways. No, make the robe of useful items a cloak of useful items, but same as the +1 dagger, we give it a name, we give it a theme. For instance, I once made a Shire Defender's cloak. It was a +1 cloak of protection, but it also, on the inside lining, had all those patches, very halfling themed. Like one of them was second breakfast. Another one was the door to a halfling hole. You pull the patch out, throw it on the ground, it becomes a full-size halfling door. You open the door, you go inside, it's a halfling hole. You go in there, shut the door, there's a full pantry, you can eat, rest up, and when you leave, the door shrinks down to a patch and becomes unmatchable, and the halfling hole is gone. There might be a small bow and 20 arrows as a patch. Another one of these was the cloak of the woodland archer. It's actually the elvish cloak, and the patches in its lining are like, say, a spare bowstring, elvish rope, quiver of arrows, very themed towards, Legolas, woodland archer kind of thing, along those lines. Or it could be the cloak of the curate. Curate is a level title for one of the cleric's levels, I think 3rd level. So the cloak of the curate is themed along cleric lines. So there would be a holy symbol, there'd be holy water, there'd be ceremonial vestments. You never know when you need ceremonial vestments. You're visiting a city, you need to impress the locals that you're a big time, cleric and priest. You pull this patch for ceremonial vestments, and you've got something that you're able to use for, running a con or trying to convince NPCs that you're more important than you actually are. Could be an incense burner. I think the incense burner is actually a really great idea for this. You pull the patch out in a situation where all the player characters have been dunked in water. It's freezing. You must get a fire going, but all the wood is wet. That incense burner would have a lit coal in it for putting the incense on. So that lit coal could be crucial to getting a fire going and you wouldn't be using it to do a procession with the classic Roman Catholic, swinging the incense censer. as you do a procession type of thing. You wouldn't be using it that way, but you'd be using it. It'd be life or death because the characters are going to freeze or suffer an ill health effect because of the situation, and this lets them get a fire going. So number one is cloak of useful items, but we don't, well, robe of useful items, but we don't call it that. We call it something much more interesting, and we make it themed because, frankly, the robe of useful items is very ho-hum, very mundane items, but let's make it themed and make it more interesting. And then players are going to be really happy to have it. If I'm playing a Legolas type character, I'm going to love the cloak of the woodland archer. It's going to look cool on my character sheet, having that there, or going back to number 10 to the lowly +1 dagger, the dagger of the cut purse. That's going to look cool on my sheet. And when somebody else sees it, they're going to be like, what is that? They're looking to see if you got a Vorpal sword, but they're going to see that and go, what is that? And then you'll tell them, and it'll be like, oh, that's unusual. That is cool. I like that. And when the character does get up to a respectable level and he still has that and he's still using it for pickpocketing to cut the strings on a purse, he's going to be a one-hit wonder, and it'll only be when there's a critical fail that he fails because he's high enough level that his chance at pickpocketing is so high, and then the bonus stacked on top of that will just take him over. So you're just rolling for the critical failure at that point. The player will love it, and frankly, pickpocketing does not unbalance the game unless you allow it to. So this is Tom for Tabletop Tap Room. That is my top 10 list of low-level magic items that are not boring and don't break your game. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below. And thank you for watching the video. This is Tom for Tabletop Tap Room signing out, and keep on gaming.